You're listening to Parenting Our Future. I'm parenting expert Robbin McManne, author of The Yelling Cure and founder of Parenting for Connection. My podcast is all about providing you with the tools and solutions you need in all different areas of your parenting so you can create strong connections with your kids, get all the cooperation you want, and live a life that is full of joy and connection. And by the way, the tools and solutions that you're looking for in your parenting don't just live in each episode of my show, they're also in my free membership site, The Parent Toolbox, where you can access tools created by myself and my brilliant guests that cover everything from helping your kids to sleep, managing meltdowns, reducing overwhelm, to getting your kids to listen the first time, and so much more. Join the Parent Toolbox so you can download and use the tools that are ready on the site, and each week, a brand new tool is added. And of course, the best part is it's absolutely free to join and to stay in. You can go to www.parent-toolbox.com today. Now let's dive into this next episode of Parenting Our Future. Hello, everybody. It's Robbin here. Welcome back to Parenting Our Future. I'm so happy to have you here. And today we're really talking about the working mom and how we can navigate being in the careers that we love, while also raising the family that we love. And I have somebody who's so special, somebody who I've actually known for a really long time, Jen Murtagh. And she has over 2 decades of experience spanning both corporate and nonprofit heart-centered leadership, and has been really she's worked for some amazing organizations that are big names here in Vancouver and in the Lower Mainland. And she's an award-winning and value-based C-suite leader. Jen has successfully led and raised millions for national campaigns on anti-bullying, vulnerable youth, and advanced gender equality through her work with various women's organizations. So Jen, thank you for being here. And thank you already for what you've done for women in the workplace.
I'm thrilled to be here, Robbin. I'm a big fan of your podcast and all the conversations that you're advancing with your listeners and really just in the community.
Yeah, well, and our paths crossed many, many years ago because you were in the nonprofit sector and I was working with McDonald's restaurants in our giving. I still say our, oh my gosh, it's been so long, but still I did corporate responsibility and giving. And so we would work with you with Easter Seals and CKNW, Orphans Fund, right? So lots of different, our paths have crossed over the years. We know a lot of the same people too. So it's so great that we get to come back in this arena and talk about this. And as you know, I am passionate about supporting women and parents in the workplace, especially now after the last 2 years that we've had, because we know how hard parents have been hit. We talk about burnout rates, we talk about the Great Resignation, and the hardest hit in these categories are really the parents who've been working at home and had their kids online schooling as well. So we're adding lunch monitor and playground helper and all that stuff to our list of duties. And women, moms really bear the brunt of it all. And so you have this beautiful program called Maturn. And so we're going to talk about that. And I also want to bring in some statistics to really, really sort of hammer home why this is so important, the work that you're doing. So first, please introduce us to Matern.
Yeah, so Matern is Canada's first comprehensive maternity leave program. It really supports women through that crucial transition and sometimes very challenging transition from their careers to their maternity leave while they're on their maternity leave and then in the return to work. So, we're sort of the first organization that has really looked at this because the maternity leave pause is, in my opinion, for a really long time has been really unaddressed in terms of gender equity, because maternity leave and the years surrounding it represent the single largest point in which women off-ramp from organizations. And that's not because all mothers are choosing that they want to stay home full time, even though that's a really respectable thing and very hard thing to do. There's
Absolutely.
lots of reasons why they're leaving their careers. And obviously, the pandemic has really amplified that in the last 2 years. But systemic change really needs to happen around this period of time. And really, at the end of the day, the research and data shows that women just need more support.
They need more support. Absolutely. And let's talk about why they need extra support and why we should even look at women. And I want to read, like I said, I've got some research here and I want to be a little bit of a research nerd and tell you what I know, because it's important that we break it down. So Bright Horizons, in their 5th annual Modern Family Index, said that working women bring skills to the workplace that can actually make them the best leaders. They offer concrete So the report offers concrete data showing that working moms are the best equipped to bring 21st century leadership skills to the workplace. And so in the peers who were surveyed, it said that 89% said that women bring the best out in employees, that 84% believe that having mothers in leadership roles will make business more successful. 65% of those surveys described working moms as better listening than other employees. They're better team players. They're also better at multitasking and time management. So we bring a lot to the leadership, to the business, to corporate climate as well, right? So that's why we need to invest in these mamas.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much research and data on this. There was also a really great research study done by the female quotient, Shelley Zalis, on reframing motherhood. I mean, this is not a shock, but yet women still come back to the workforce after taking maternity leave. The data shows where their confidence has plummeted, and they almost are hiding the fact that they're a mother, or they feel like they need to prove themselves all over again. These are all sort of anecdotal things that we've heard from a lot of different mothers. And the reality of the fact is you're even more valuable to your employer as a result of becoming a mother and becoming a parent, just, based on all the things that you just listed there. And so we don't believe that women need to hide that. We don't believe that women need to prove themselves. Their value just grew exponentially as a result of becoming a mother to their employer. And that's not something that women need to hide anymore.
So, let's talk about that for a minute, because the fact remains that workplaces are still really dominated by a culture of men for a lot of the cases. And that was my case for sure in my corporate career. And, why is it that we need to, why do we have to feel that we have to prove ourselves?
Well, I think it's a narrative for a lot of women that we constantly, and to be honest with you, there's probably a lot of data that shows that women have to work a lot harder to end up where potentially a man ends up. And then if you look at, and those are privileged women, if you look at, Indigenous women or women of color, they face even more disproportionate wage gaps and opportunities to advance in the workplace. And so they even have to work 4 times harder to kind of get where other people are. But I have to say, I notice, there's a cultural shift happening in the last few years, and diversity, equity, and inclusion work really are at the forefront of every sector. And so there's a lot more awareness and consciousness around the old ways. What got us here is not going to get us there. And that organizations are really going to need to shift and change in order to attract and retain talent. And obviously with 50% of the population being women, and a large percentage of those women deciding to become mothers or becoming mothers, your attraction and retainment of those individuals, it's going to maybe look a little bit differently, because you're going to need to support them potentially in a different way, but like you mentioned, by and large, women still holding 75% of domestic and childcare responsibilities. So that's why we're seeing, especially during the pandemic, women leaving organization in droves. If you look at the majority of people that left, organizations in the last 2 years, the majority have been mothers. They've been disproportionately affected. The motherhood penalty is a pervasive and real thing. And so we hope Maturn will be really a concrete tool for organizations to advance their DEI strategies and support mothers at the same time. And we do believe that if women felt more supported by these organizations in that transition to and from maternity leave, that we would see more women deciding to stay.
Right. The fact is, according to the Mom Project, 43% of women will leave their careers when home life becomes too complex. Their careers. And those are valuable people that we just listed off all the reasons why their own, colleagues say that they are better in the workplace. And, when you talk about what Maturn offers, what I love about it is I think that it also keeps the leadership accountable, because if they're investing in this program for the women in their company, then they've got to also make sure that they reinforce those same values when they're talking to them. And I think what women need is flexibility from their leaders. They need open door policies. I don't want to be held back because I'm a mom. And I also want to be able to take my kid to the doctor because that's also part of my reality too. Or, maybe pick them up at school or whatever, right?
Well, and I think we need to normalize that women are going to have children. And that is, that is like adding people to our population and growing our economy. And so a lot of organizations traditionally have, treated maternity leave like a big pain in the butt. Yeah. They're like, oh, she's going on labor. We don't want to hire her. She just got married and she's probably going to have a baby. And then we're going to have to fill the position and all of that sort of stuff. Like, women are going to have children. And so organizations need to really step it up in terms of normalizing that we support you through these transitions. And we would love for you to come back and keep growing you and investing in you in this organization. Like there was a study done in the US last year that showed that we might be moving backwards when it comes to supporting mothers in the workplace. Nearly twice as many US women reported feeling nervous to tell their boss they were pregnant compared to 5 years ago. So that's a big problem, especially for the over 375,000 women that take maternity leave each year. So that's a lot of women that are being penalized for growing our population and growing our economy.
Wow. Well, I have a story for you. So, my youngest son is going to be turning 14. So that will age the story. And when I came back, so when I was working with McDonald's, I came back from my maternity leave and there were 2 of us in the department. And so my colleague had really just, what they did to cover my mat leave was she took over everything and just had an assistant to help with just the busy work, right? All the other stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it worked really well while I was away. And when I came back, they had decided that that's how it was going to run when I got back, that I was going to be that for her. And I said, well, I don't want that. I said, what do you mean? I'm going to have to take notes when she has a meeting? She's my equal. She's my colleague. And I refused to. I said, no, I won't. Mm-hmm. And I was shocked because they really wanted, they said, my boss at the time, well, we're doing this for you because you've just had another baby. And I was like, well, nobody asked me if that's what I wanted,
Yeah, exactly.
And I was very ambitious at the time too. I really wanted to run, the department. Incidentally, I did end up running it.
Yeah, no joke. And what you faced right there, Robbin, is called the maternal wall. And the maternal wall are the stereotypes and biases that people hold against mothers and pregnancy and kind of, that really undermine working mothers' ability to advance in the workplace. So they made the assumption that, oh, she's had her second, she's not going to have the capacity, rather than having a conversation with you about, how are you feeling about coming back? What are the supports we can put in place for you? Is there anything that might need to change? How are you feeling about advancing your career? Making really assumptions about you. And maternal bias is really pervasive in the workplace. And I have to fully admit, like, mea culpa, as a woman who was a mother, who was a senior executive in an organization, when I was interviewing, I'd be like, oh, you just got married last year. Okay. In my mind thinking, well, she's going to have a baby probably soon. maybe I'll hire the other person. So like, and I didn't because I recognize my bias and done a lot of unconscious bias training, but
Yeah.
those are the little ways that maternal bias shows up. People they assume instead of asking. And so that's why we work with a lot of organizations as well. We have a workshop that specifically addresses how you as a people leader can help shape the culture in your organization. So those kinds of things don't show up. So even if you don't have a direct, kind of report coming back from maternity leave, you might be in a meeting where someone's like, oh, so-and-so is going on leave. So like, let's take her off that project. You can be like, hey, has anyone asked Robbin if she wants to be taken off that project?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you can call it out as well. So yeah, we all play a part in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate your honesty, because I would have thought that too. I'll be honest. I really would have thought that too. And that is old thinking, really, truly, because as we know now, wow. And having experienced it, I had never worked harder in my whole life. I came back in 2009, and McDonald's was at the time the global sponsor for the Olympics. So right. I went right into working on our Olympic program, and literally had never worked so hard in my life.
Well, and the research shows how efficient mothers are with their time, because they can come in and be like laser focused and incredibly efficient and have a lot going on at once and keep it all running.
I became very rude in that I was like, I don't have time for that conversation. I don't have time to stop and talk to you. I got to go and do this thing, and then I got to leave. Right. So it's very true. You just sort of cut out the BS, right? You just cut out the stuff that doesn't matter. I don't have time to stand at the photocopier and talk to you about nothing, because I got to get home and, I got to get my work done and get home. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of organizations need to move from this like place of, deficit thinking, where it's like, if I don't see you with your bum in that seat for 8 hours, then like, you're not kind of doing the amount of work you need to do, to more like asset-based thinking, which is around, how like the value you contribute in your organization, no matter like, kind of just getting the job done and being successful and having flexibility around that. And to be honest with you, it's not something that just mothers need and want.
Right.
The millennial partners want to be very involved in the parenting life as well, and don't want to be tethered to a desk. They want to be measured on their outputs. So I think, and I hope the pandemic has helped move that in a way, because this whole work from home culture happened, but then it's also brought other challenges as well. But I think organizations, in order to really like grow and retain talent with 1 million empty jobs in this country, like organizations need to shift their thinking and how we approach parents in the workplace as well.
Right. Right. Because when you lose an employee because of whatever reason, you haven't really, treated them well, or other reasons, it's going to cost you in training, in hiring, right? And that costs companies money. So let's keep the beautiful talent that we have. Let's nurture them, take care of them, right? So I love that idea of that deficit thinking versus what was the opposite of the deficit? Was
like asset-based thinking, like looking at your employee based on what they bring to the organization, not just the amount of time they might be in that one chair on those like 6 hours of Zoom calls.
Yeah, no, I love that. And what you just said about millennials in the workforce, and even the next generation, what is the next generation?
And
Z, there it is. So those are my kids, right? And they're also looking at us working, and how we come home and we complain, how we are stressed out, how we are like ignoring them because we still have to get work done. And they're looking at us and saying, I don't want that. I'm not going to do that. Why should I do that? And I think what the great thing about what's happened with the pandemic too, as far as, everybody is concerned, dads and moms, is like, why can't I work from home and be home for dinner with my family? Why do I need this commute? And my commute, incidentally, when I was going back and forth, it wasn't even that far. It was at least an hour each way.
Right.
And that
That's
was
pretty far.
2 hours out of my day that
Totally.
and it's not even that far. It was more traffic than anything. The
Yeah, of
highway
course.
traffic was horrible. And so, that's, non-productive time unless you're on your phone the whole time, but that's also, that's not going to work either. It's not safe. So, we really need to be aware of that. And companies need to start thinking now about the employees that they're going to have in the future. So this has to happen. It has to happen. They don't have any choice if they want to be profitable. And one of the things that I'm so passionate about is, and your program is so perfect. So helping the mothers when they first become moms. And what I also know is that we need to take care of them beyond that too, because it's not until around the age of 2, our kids start to really push our buttons and start to get more stressful and harder on us and that sort of thing. So I also believe that if we can offer support to parents as they're on their journey is also extremely important, because if you have parents that are coming to work who are tired, who are unfocused, and whether you like it or not, if you're having trouble at home, you're bringing that to work. You can't leave that behind. If your child is dealing with mental health issues or school, they're not going to school and you don't know, did they go to school? Are they skipping school? That's going to be on your mind the whole time. So having those kinds of supports and resources are vital for the company to thrive as well. And when you treat families well, that's good for the community, that's good for the economy, that's good for the company's bottom line, and that's good for the world. It's good for everybody. So we have to look at it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a big ripple effect.
Yeah, I could go on, but I want to talk about I want to bring it back to your program, because I want to understand, what mothers get from this program and what you're teaching them and how that all works. And really sort of the biggest headlines that you see that these moms are facing that you're addressing.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the core of what Maturn is support and community. And, both Sonia, my co-founder, and I really felt both of those things were lacking in our maternity leaves. And so the program itself is, it's got 3 components. It's got an online learning module where moms can log in and at their own pace go through the content. We have over 40 guest expert speakers, you obviously being one of them, on such a range of topics, from what to look for in childcare when you're putting your child in childcare, to creating a will or looking at budgeting your finances for potentially 12 months off, to what does self-care and self-compassion look like in motherhood? What does an equitable partnership plan look like if you are in a partnership on your leave? So it is a very broad range. So there's 8 modules and mothers can go at their own pace. And then we have live coaching calls every month. So they can be in community with other women. Through those calls, we have like a new members meet and greet where they get to meet some other moms in a more in-depth way. We have a community and connection session where we get really raw and real about motherhood and what's going on for everybody. And then we bring in a guest expert speaker live every month as well. And they facilitate a conversation on a specific topic that sort of has a broad range around motherhood. There's also a private online community for mothers so that they can connect with other mothers, maybe that are in their community, or crowdsource for questions or support.
Love that.
And so, it's really a hybrid model, because every person learns and absorbs in a different way. And so what we really wanted to do was create community. I mean, when I was on my first maternity leave, it was obviously pre-COVID. My daughter is 12 now, but I would go down to like the local gym and go to like the baby days things and like connect with other moms in the community. But if I'm going to be really honest, most of the mothers I connected with, they weren't career minded. They didn't want to go back to work. It was like out of necessity. They really, really loved being moms. They wanted to be kind of stay full time, which I was always slightly jealous of because I never felt that way. I was was like, oh, darn it, I wish I could feel that way. And I connected with those women, but I still felt really isolated because, to be honest with you, my experience was so much different. I pined for my career. That fulfilled me in a different way. Motherhood fills you in one way, but my career fulfilled me in a different way. And I felt kind of a lot of shame. I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't want to go back to work. Maybe I should want to stay home. What's wrong with me? And I felt like, and I didn't really have a community of women who also felt that way. But the more I verbalized it, the more other mothers would come forward and be like, yeah, maternity leave has been like tough. Or I had and so we wanted to create a community where a lot of those conversations were normalized for women. You can feel torn. You can be excited about your return and also feeling like, oh my gosh, now I'm only going to see my baby like an hour a day or 2 hours a day. What am I going to do? Like, that's really tough. So, we try and normalize a lot of the experiences because it can be really overwhelming. And the longer the leave, the harder the return. So if you're taking 18 months now, and we have a couple of women in our program who've taken 18 months back to back. So they've really between the time,
get that much time off. Sorry to interrupt you.
Well, anybody can take 18 months now.
I guess you just don't get,
And there are some organizations that provide full top up for 18 months. So this feels like a very viable, which is great, but the longer the leave, the harder the return. You're hearing trends of mothers coming back on long-term disability because they are feeling so overwhelmed about coming back to work that they just go on then another leave. So we're like, Maturn is really about women feeling empowered about their return. And there's a lot of things you can do from a confidence perspective. And it's like, we don't want it to be another full-time job. Like, you're on leave, right? Like, it's also really busy when you're on maternity leave. And so we've taken all of that into account so women can really go at their own pace. And if you just want to participate in the calls, and just show up for the calls, like, you don't need to do anything else. If you really love the workbooks and listening to all of the resources that we have, then do that. So we're trying to meet mothers where they are.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think you also need to give the leadership a little lesson on what maternity leave really is like, because I'm not just sitting around watching TV and, cuddling the baby. Like, it is hard work.
And a lot of women get this, enjoy your year off. Oh, it's going to be so amazing. You're just going to love every minute of it. I mean, I had a colicky baby that screamed 4 to 6 hours a day for the first 4 months. I would have given anything to being able to be back at work for even a day. Like, it is not a vacation. It's hard work. And we need to kind of change the narrative around that as well. And a lot of women don't know, especially if it's your first time. It's been interesting because we thought, people joining Maturn, we kind of thought, oh, we'll get a lot of new mothers. Well, no, it's about 50-50. We have a woman who's on her 4th leave in our program. And she's like, well, I joined because I would have loved to have this for my other leaves. So it doesn't really matter at what point you are on that maternity journey. I think we can always be learning and growing, and support is not something you should say no to when you're on your leave.
Yeah. Well, and what I know for sure is that people need community. They need community, and knowing that you're not alone in saying, actually, this is really hard. I'm desperate to go back to work. I think just being able to be honest about that, and for other people to say, yeah, me too. There is power in that. And I see that in the group coaching I do. Anytime I do, have a bunch of women together and we're talking about this, just that alone is a huge weight off your shoulder. And the thing about maternity leave is it's so isolating too. If you haven't been sleeping and your baby hasn't been well, you have to tell everybody to stay away, and maybe it's just you and your partner with the baby. And it can be really hard. I was always scared of the nighttime personally, because my baby didn't sleep. He didn't sleep. And I'll tell you what, I was so excited to go back to work. I still remember that drive to work. I was like as happy as I could be, and I felt but a part of me felt terrible, but most of me felt really excited. And I do also think that staying home with your kids is can be the harder choice because,
course.
you know, and yeah, and one last thing, when you say, you know, you don't know what it's going to be like. I really legitimately thought I would be like Mother Earth when I had my son. I thought I would be like, oh no, I will care for all of the children of the world. I love it so much. And I was like, I cannot wait to get out of here. This kid is driving me crazy.
I think the highlight of my day was going through the Starbucks drive-through and getting like an oat fudge bar. That was literally the highlight of my day when I was breastfeeding. I was like, I can eat whatever I want. While my daughter was like screaming in the back seat, me yelling over like the one oat fudge bar. Yeah. So, you know, but however, it's also joyful and beautiful. And like, there's all these incredible moments as well. It's not all doom and gloom. And we definitely don't want to like, you know, paint that picture, but we need community. You're right. You cannot become yourself by yourself. You need people and support to help you along the way. And so that's what we facilitate.
I love that. You cannot become yourself by yourself.
It's not my quote, but I think it's an important one. And I've learned that certainly in my own growth, right? Which is why I work with a coach. I've worked with a therapist. I've worked with all the people to help me become more of me and strip away the parts that just, I don't want them around anymore.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it's really important to say that, and look, this is something I say all the time. So if you've listened to my show before, you know what you may know what I'm about to say, that motherhood is parenthood is the most important job that we do. Of course, I believe that. And it's the only job we do without any training, without any education. And we need to know some things about it. So it's okay to say, I need help. It's okay to say, you know what, I don't know what to do. And put my hand up and say, how come this is happening? Is this normal? Is this right? And learning a little bit and investing in a coach, investing in a program like yours is something that will only make you better, you know, and really help you feel a sense of belonging. And let's be honest, that is a core human need.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love what you're doing. And one of the things that you have for us, for our listeners in the Parent Toolbox is a maternity transition plan. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a maternity leave transition plan. So if you are expecting a child, whether you're a birthing or a non-birthing mother, this is a plan that will sort of help you with your transition to maternity leave and then your return. And it includes sort of top tips. There's a template that you can sit down with your supervisor and go through specifically, you know, what projects, you know, will need to be handled while you're off, what gaps you might foresee. Then it gives you some prompts around what you might want to ask for. So a lot of organizations traditionally have taken away your mobile phone or your laptop or all of this, but a lot of that also cuts you off from a communication perspective. So we guide you through, here's some questions you might want to ask, here's some requests you might consider making, dependent upon your own desires and needs. Because a lot of women feel like, well, I don't want to talk to work at all for 6 months or a year or 18 months. And that's totally fine. It's up to you. But some women might say, you know what, if there's some big organizational changes, if there's like a staff event, if there's any changes in my department, I'd love to know about it. Or maybe I could join the quarterly call. Like, you get to ask for what you might like. And then that's a negotiation. That's a point of discussion around, you know, are you allowed to keep your laptop? You know, we were speaking to one organization the other day that instituted a policy around women being able to keep their email open if they want to. So they have an out of office on, but they're still able to access it. So they can still see if they want to, hey, what's going on in the company? So they don't feel so disconnected when they return, especially if it's a longer leave. So that's sort of what the transition plan helps with. They're all the questions and all the things I wish I would have thought about on my first leave.
I never even thought about that at all. I love that. It's wow. What help? What that is incredible. Thank you.
Well, and you get to request things too. Like, you know, if you're putting your child in daycare when you're returning from work, there'll probably be a gradual reentry. You know, some organizations offer a gradual reentry for you as well, but you don't know unless you ask. And some women are really afraid to ask for anything, but like the worst your organization can say is like, no, we don't offer that. And then you do a workaround, but you should be able to ask for some of those things. So yeah, we want women to feel empowered. So we think this will help do that.
So you need to square your shoulders. You need to have that piece of paper that you're providing us, and you can go to your boss with full confidence, knowing how much more valuable you are just because you're a mom.
This feeling of like this glorious, never feeling confidence for women, I don't really think is super accurate. I think we all feel an immense amount of self-doubt. It's just a matter of not letting it get in the way of what you want or you want to ask for. We can let it be there and just not let it block us. Because I kind of feel, I think we all feel a certain degree of self-doubt, especially when we're stretching outside of our comfort zones. And so we're maybe not going to feel confident about it. I think we can normalize that, but still take the step,
Yeah. But what you're providing is a framework that will allowing women to feel more confident. Like I know what to ask, I know what to say, and knowledge is really power. So I do think, when I think of my old boss and I think of having had a conversation like that, I would have felt much better knowing that I got this support. So you're right. I mean, I think we all do feel self-doubt. You're absolutely right. But this is empowering. And that's what I like about this. So I think that's really great. So I just want to thank you for the program that you have. And, I want to say that, as two Canadians, we are talking about this program in Canada, but this is not specific to Canadian women, and your program will evolve and change for as you grow into other countries and regions.
Yeah, well, the experience of motherhood is universal. I know I've been in other countries and I've seen a mother struggling with her child, and I've just looked at her and been like, I know you're doing the best job you can, right? Like there's this unspoken kind of language amongst mothers that we kind of understand. There's obviously cultural nuances dependent upon what country you're in. But the Maturn program, there's nothing specifically Canadian, even though it is more geared towards women taking longer leaves. Obviously, a much different scenario in the United States. But we will, if people are listening, mothers from other countries, there's nothing specifically Canadian. We don't get into the ins and outs of like the EI process in Canada or anything like that. The program, we do see moving it globally. We're working on a French version for Canada. And, we have hopes to move to the US as well.
That's fantastic. I love it. Empowering women everywhere. I love it so much. Thank you.
Thanks,
for the
Robbin.
work that you're doing. I don't think this is going to be the last time we talk. I think that this is a conversation that we need to have on a regular basis to support moms and to really remind companies that there is value and we're good for the bottom line. So, don't count us out. So
100%. And if there's any listeners that think that the organizations they work for might support it or sponsor it, please get in touch. You can find us at Matern Canada on Instagram, or I'm on LinkedIn. We have a short presentation. We've met with a lot of different companies in the last couple of months. We have some really big global organizations that are now offering it as a benefit within their own organization. So happy to get in touch with anyone regarding that too.
That's great. And I'm going to put all of your information on the show notes, so it'll be easy to get in touch with Jen. And if not, you just reach out to me and I'll pass you on to Jen. So thanks so much for everything that you shared today. We are all better for it.
Thanks, Robbin.
Thank you for listening to this edition of my podcast, Parenting Our Future. I'm parent coach Robbin McManne. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with someone who you think might also need to hear this message. And don't forget to subscribe. And if you like my work, I'd be grateful if you gave me a 5-star rating. For those of you who like my content and want more, visit me at yellingcurebook.com to get your copy of my book and to find other resources to help you. Until next time, I am wishing you and your family peace and